Now, I'll be honest with you, before I watched it, I was not a fan of theirs. Now I've actually heard their side of the story, I hate them.
You really need to stop thinking in terms of palaces. We have to get jobs. I have to start auditioning again.
If you haven't seen the documentary, lucky you.
Oh yes, you were on the very famous show Suits. More popular in the States than even Friends, you told us.
Ginger Royal meets fit American actress. She then discovers that everything is so unfair.
Yeah, I might have oversold that a little bit at the time.
Look, I love you and I'm willing to do whatever I need to do in order to be with you, Megan.
He then discovers that racism is actually a bad thing.
Aw, and I love you too. I think it's important we do this ourselves, Harry, and not live off your family.
I agree.
Picture this. It's barely sunrise in one of America's most exclusive zip codes, and someone's world is about to implode. Not from a natural disaster or a stock market crash, but from something far more modern and infinitely more humiliating, getting absolutely roasted by cartoon characters on national television. The phones started buzzing before the coffee was even brewed. Not the usual gentle morning symphony of calendar reminders and pleasant emails. This was different. This was chaos in digital form.
We'll just have to find a way to make £50 billion on our own.
Message after message marked urgent, each one carrying the same terrifying news. The internet had declared war, and there were no prisoners being taken. What makes this story so fascinating isn't just that two of the world's most famous people were about to get demolished by animated shows. It's how a simple leak transformed into a full-scale PR apocalypse that would test every relationship, every business deal, and every carefully crafted image they'd spent years building. But here's what nobody saw coming. This wasn't going to be just one episode. This was about to become a coordinated double feature that would make the most brutal celebrity roasts look like gentle ribbing. And the clock was already ticking.
She hates delete.
You need to knock it off, and you're hitting everyone with that table.
When your worst nightmare has a dashboard, the first sign of trouble came through their social monitoring system. You know those neat little graphs that PR teams use to track public sentiment? Usually they're a comfortable mix of green and yellow indicators, maybe the occasional orange spike during a rough news cycle. This morning, the entire screen was bleeding red. Not just red. Violent, undeniable, apocalyptic red. The sentiment needle had crashed overnight, bulldozed by a relentless flood of memes, countdown timers, and something that would haunt them for weeks to come: double feature video edits. Someone had taken leaked scenes from both shows and stitched them together into a preview that was spreading faster than wildfire.
Dad, do you have any cash for a cab? Oh look, Grandma's on the money. I never noticed that before.
By 6 in the morning, the inner circle was already huddled on an emergency call. No cameras, no pleasantries, just the kind of clipped, professional panic you hear when people are trying to sound calm while their world burns around them. Someone read the trending phrases from the overnight data scrape, and each one hit like a physical blow. Panic gap, victim card declined, Prince of Wine. None of them were compliments. All of them were climbing the charts. Inside their offices, the atmosphere felt like election night after a devastating loss. Staff members shuffled in earlier than usual, clutching coffee cups like life preservers, eyes glued to their phones.
Bravo fired me. Well, not really, but basically, they only offered me friend of the Housewives for next season.
The whiteboard that usually mapped out charity partnerships and positive press opportunities now displayed something entirely different. A crisis flowchart with one word scrawled across the top in block letters that seemed to mock them: containment. But here's the thing about containment in the digital age. It's not just about controlling what you say. It's about locking down everything. Every social media account, every planned post, every carefully curated lifestyle photo that makes you look relatable and aspirational. All of it had to disappear until the storm passed. They called it flipping to black status, and it was the PR equivalent of boarding up windows before a hurricane. The problem was, this particular storm had a timetable they couldn't control.
Hi, I'm Meghan Markle.
And I'm Harry. Harry.
And we're royally screwed.
The countdown nobody wanted. What made this morning different from every other PR crisis was the timeline staring them in the face. This wasn't some vague threat lurking in the distance. According to the internet's most dedicated investigators, they now had 2 clocks running simultaneously. One for the rumored episode that could drop any day, and another for the follow-up that would arrive just weeks later. It was a schedule designed in hell. A 1-2 punch that would give them just enough time to recover from the first blow before the second one landed even harder.
I'm sorry, I'm just really stressed. We're completely out of money.
Maybe it's time we dip into your fortune from Suits.
There is no fortune from Suits.
The conversations in those closed-door meetings weren't just about damage control anymore. They were about impossible choices. Do you issue a statement knowing it might become fresh material for the writers? Do you stay silent and risk looking weak? The last time they'd tried the silent treatment, it worked, but that was one show, one cycle. This was a coordinated assault from 2 different directions. By the time actual sunlight started filtering through the perfectly manicured hedges outside, they'd settled on a strategy for the day. No public statements, absolute coordination with brand partners, military-level discipline on preventing leaks.
I don't know what to do. How are we going to pay for school for Archie?
I have to tell you, I never realized so many things cost money. Like this chicken. I bet you had to pay for it.
Phones would go into airplane mode during any in-person crisis discussions, because even a stray text message could become tomorrow's headline. But even with all those precautions, something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't the controlled, carefully managed PR environment they'd spent years perfecting. This was a siege, and worse yet, it was running on someone else's schedule. Before the day was over, that schedule was about to get a lot more brutal. By mid-morning, the phrase "black status" wasn't just scribbled on a whiteboard anymore. It had been stamped across every corner of their operation, like a quarantine notice. The phones kept buzzing, but now it was with internal reminders that sounded more like military orders than PR guidance. No unscheduled social posts, no candid paparazzi moments, no casual check-ins with friendly journalists. The message was crystal clear. Freeze everything.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. I kind of took you out of your natural habitat. I'm surprised you're still breathing.
Black status meant their entire public-facing machine went into stealth mode. Those smiling paparazzi walks that usually dotted their PR calendar? Canceled. The pre-planned Instagram post featuring a perfectly staged kitchen scene? Pulled from the queue. Even something as harmless as reposting a charity's thank you photo was flagged as too risky when every pixel could be transformed into a punchline. In the strategy room, 2 draft statements sat on the table like competing battle plans, and the tension between them revealed everything you need to know about what was happening behind closed doors. The first statement was everything you'd expect: polished, empathetic, taking the high road. It addressed the hurtful nature of satire, reaffirmed their commitment to meaningful projects, and invited the public to focus on issues that actually mattered.
It's so nice to have you back in London, Megan. I've missed our little lunches.
We've never had lunch together, Kate.
Well, we must continue the tradition.
It was gracious, forward-looking, and diplomatically above the fray. The second statement couldn't have been more different. 2 sentences. Short enough for a tweet. No soft edges. No moral high ground. Just a blunt, "We won't dignify this with a response" approach. Meant to slam the door completely. One strategy bet on winning hearts and minds. The other bet on starving the story of oxygen. Both had risks that could destroy everything they'd built. The legal team joined the conversation early, quietly researching parody law and hunting for any angle that might justify a formal complaint. Everyone in the room knew it was a nearly impossible fight. American parody protections are basically bulletproof, but sometimes you need to map an escape route, even if you'll probably never use it. Outside those closed doors, the ripple effects were already spreading like cracks in a foundation. When your brand becomes toxic, the first phone call from a business partner came before lunch. It was polite, almost overly courteous, but the message underneath was unmistakable. They were nervous.
How dare you, sir? My Instagram-loving wife has always wanted her privacy!
This particular partner was a high-end home goods company that had built their entire collaboration around the couple's image as a modern, aspirational power pair. Their spokesperson danced around the word concern, instead talking about timing, sensitivity, and narrative alignment. Translation: They didn't want to launch luxury tableware in the same week the internet was plastered with yacht jokes and wine memes. By afternoon, 2 more conversations of the same flavor had landed on their desk. A boutique beauty brand was quietly reworking their rollout calendar. A wellness company that had been deep in negotiations about a co-branded initiative suddenly wanted to, quote, reassess the optimal moment to go public. Nobody was breaking up. This was about delays, not divorces. But even delays carry devastating weight in the luxury market, where launch dates aren't arbitrary. They're built months in advance around fashion seasons and cultural moments. Missing your slot can mean waiting an entire year for the next opportunity.
If it's truly what we want, then we really can get away from it all. No more magazines and Netflix shows. We really can live a normal life. Yes, I'm sure you agree, darling.
Inside their headquarters, these calls got added to a wall of color-coded notes, creating a new category that nobody wanted to acknowledge: soft pauses. The official messaging to staff remained calm. These partners were still committed. Adjustments were normal in a dynamic media environment. Behind closed doors, the reality was harsher. Their brand had stopped being a blank canvas for elegant campaigns. It had become a lightning rod, and luxury brands don't thrive on controversy. They thrive on aspiration. Some advisors saw opportunity in this chaos. They argued that the attention, even the mockery, could be redirected toward philanthropic work that reminded audiences about substance over spectacle. If luxury partners needed time, fine, they could fill the gap with cause-driven content that played to their strengths. Others weren't buying it. They looked at the same data, the same sentiment analysis tilting negative, and concluded that nothing would survive the meme storm. Better to wait it out completely, let the noise burn itself out, and only then re-enter the conversation with a clean slate. It was the difference between playing offense and playing defense, and both strategies carried existential risks. Meanwhile, the internet wasn't slowing down. If anything, the leaked content had evolved into something more dangerous than jokes. It had become shorthand.
This might be the smallest palace I've ever been in.
Words like yacht, rosé, and throne of mix didn't need context anymore. They were instant visual triggers that conjured images impossible to control. And here's what luxury brands understand better than anyone. You can't sell elegance when everyone's laughing. Even if the laughter is temporary, its echo can last forever. If the initial leaks had been the match, what happened next felt like someone squeezing the trigger on a blowtorch. It started with something that should have been completely forgettable: an animator's Instagram story that flashed for less than 15 minutes before disappearing. Most people would have missed it entirely. But in the age of screen recording and fan communities that never sleep, nothing ever really vanishes. The clip was short, grainy, and clearly taken from inside a studio. But there it was, hanging on the wall behind the animated family couch, the royal sentiment meter, its needle shaking so violently that the caption underneath read, "Warning, high risk of wine." That single image was enough to reignite the entire internet. Within hours, screenshots from the clip were bouncing across Twitter and Reddit, stitched together with previously leaked descriptions from weeks earlier. Fans weren't debating whether it was real anymore. They'd moved past that. Instead, they were trying to decode where in the episode it would appear and what it meant for the broader roast. Then came the voice recording session rumors.
Jesus, what did they do to you?
According to someone claiming to work at the recording facility, a recent taping had included multiple royal scenes, with several actors delivering exaggerated accents in quick succession. They didn't name names, but the implication was crystal clear. This wasn't going to be a single throwaway gag. This was going for volume. The most tantalizing detail involved the Throne of Mix set piece. What had originally been described as a simple background visual had apparently been upgraded into an interactive sequence, complete with dialogue and multiple characters. If the rumors were true, this wasn't just a quick visual joke. It was an entire scene designed to go viral. For those trapped in black status, watching this speculation explode across social media while being unable to respond was psychological torture. Their public feeds stayed frozen while jokes multiplied exponentially. Comment sections on completely unrelated posts began filling with references to sentiment meters and mic thrones, Lifestyle bloggers started slipping winks to yacht scenes into their home decor content. This wasn't contained to fan communities anymore. It was bleeding into mainstream conversation, where parody becomes part of casual culture. And here's what made it so brutally effective. While they sat in imposed silence, the other show was gathering momentum for what everyone assumed would be an even more devastating follow-up. Across the Atlantic, the response to this digital chaos was masterful in its complete absence. The palace didn't lift a finger, and somehow that inaction was louder than any statement could have been.
What happened to your ring?
I gave it to the working people.
We're the working people.
The silence wasn't passive, it was sculpted. Every official channel stayed locked on the royal diary. Investitures, charitable visits, the usual tightly controlled visuals of handshakes and ribbon cuttings. Not a single comment, not even a veiled reference crossed the wires about the animated circus unfolding online. But the press didn't need official quotes to connect the dots. Tabloids and newspapers began running analysis pieces about how the institution was winning the week by saying absolutely nothing. They pointed out that while online chatter looped animated versions of certain royals next to yacht memes, the senior working royals were trending for charity galas and state functions. The contrast was so stark, it almost looked choreographed. Then came the smirk. That same fleeting expression that had become a meme months earlier resurfaced in fresh video clips, now paired with leaked animation frames. Users would cut from yacht scenes straight to that royal expression, with captions like, "When you don't even have to say a word." The edits went viral all over again, which meant the palace's strategy was working perfectly without them having to participate at all. Royal correspondents began weaving telling phrases into their coverage. Articles ostensibly about official engagements contained lines like, "maintaining a serene public presence," or "appearing unfazed amid overseas noise." It was plausible deniability in print, acknowledging the existence of controversy without naming it directly, while implying institutional superiority. For the palace, this was the perfect position, feeding perceptions of calm authority while letting others do the heavy lifting. Even junior staffers, according to insider whispers, were quietly sharing memes in private group chats.
I'm sorry, I need a drink.
The yacht gags and sentiment meter jokes got passed around like inside jokes, but the unspoken rule was clear. Enjoy it off the clock, keep the public image pristine. From a strategic perspective, the palace's silence operated like a mirror, reflecting whatever the audience wanted to see. Critics read it as regal superiority. Supporters saw restraint. Even neutral observers couldn't deny that the optics favored the institution, simply by contrast. Meanwhile, Black status meant there was no counterbalance to this narrative. Every day, the palace stayed quiet. The perception gap widened. On one side, dignified smiles at official events. On the other, speculative chaos about cartoon episodes locked and loaded for broadcast. It was the oldest strategy in the royal playbook, and it was working flawlessly, which only raised the stakes for everyone else because silence had already been claimed as territory. Trying to match it now would look like following, not leading. If the first wave of internet reactions had been chaotic, the second wave was organized like a military campaign. The fan communities weren't just responding anymore. They were curating, coordinating, and creating content that looked professional enough to be official marketing. Dedicated accounts launched synchronized countdown campaigns, treating the rumored episodes like a blockbuster film release.
Auntie Megan, hello! Oh, I've missed you!
Social media became the main stage for increasingly elaborate productions. Users stitched together fake trailers for an imaginary crossover event, complete with dramatic voiceovers. This summer, 2 shows, 1 royal roast. The clips opened with yacht scenes bobbing in animated waves, then cut to sentiment meters trembling wildly. Fake title cards flashed the double feature, followed by mashups of characters delivering lines they'd never actually said, but that felt believable enough to spread without verification. Parody accounts multiplied overnight. Duchess of Chardonnay and Prince of Wine went into content overdrive, posting carousel slides of fake episode posters so polished they could have been official promotional materials. Each slide included release dates printed in bold, creating the illusion that both episodes had already been scheduled for broadcast. Twitter treated the entire phenomenon like a spectator sport. Hashtags trended in coordinated waves, driven by rapid-fire content that was less about actual leaked material and more about the cultural event itself. Popular formats used split-screen images, formal photos on the left, animated sentiment meters on the right, with captions tracking real-time mood shifts. Even the reaction economy shifted gears. Content creators started building entire segments titled Double Feature Review and Who Roasted Better. They hadn't seen a single finished scene beyond the leaks, but they were already scripting breakdowns and designing thumbnails, banking on sustained frenzy lasting until air dates. For those watching from Black Status, this organized phase of content creation was a nightmare scenario. The jokes were no longer confined to niche internet corners. They were being engineered for mass reach, polished to a level that blurred the line between fan content and professional marketing.
Anyway, Megan, you were saying Dorit's such a what?
What? No, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything, Dorit.
Well, I heard it somewhere.
Worse yet, every fake poster and faux trailer was essentially free advertising for someone else's punchline. Supporters tried pushing back with defense campaigns, but those efforts were instantly absorbed into the joke machine. Screenshots of frustrated tweets got reposted with sarcastic captions, turning genuine anger into fresh comedic fuel. By this point, the double feature had evolved beyond 2 episodes. It had become a self-sustaining cultural event that didn't need confirmation, air dates, or even reality to thrive. Every day that passed without a counter-narrative only reinforced the sense that certain parties were passive players in a story being written by everyone else. And just when it seemed like the chaos had peaked, whispers suggested the pressure wasn't just external anymore. Cracks were starting to show behind the gates. By the time countdown clocks were embedded in everything from social media feeds to gossip site headers, the strain inside their headquarters was impossible to hide from those close enough to witness private conversations. What had started as a difference in communication approach had evolved into a full-blown philosophical divide, and the gap was widening by the hour. On one side was the camp pushing for controlled, gracious engagement. In their view, silence had already ceded too much territory to the palace, which had perfected the art of looking unbothered while saying nothing. This team argued that a well-crafted statement or selective interview with a sympathetic outlet could reset the entire tone. The goal wouldn't be attacking the shows directly, but shifting conversation toward charitable work and the values they wanted associated with their brand. The opposing camp saw that as a fatal trap. Every public word, they argued, would be lifted out of context, clipped into reaction videos, or worse, fed back into the comedy scripts themselves. Their position was stark: let the episodes air, let the storm rage, and only emerge once the noise had completely burned itself out.
Over, under, around and through. Meet Mr. Bunny Rabbit, pull and through! I did it!
Good job, Harry.
Speaking twice, with 2 episodes spaced apart, meant doubling the media cycle and giving critics more ammunition. Middle ground options were floated, acknowledging the chatter without direct engagement, but nobody could agree on execution. Would it be a single line slipped into a larger interview? A subtle social post with layered meaning? The danger was that subtlety gets lost in the meme machine, especially for people whose every word gets dissected and remixed. As one staffer bluntly put it, "There's no such thing as nuance on the internet anymore. Not for them." Underneath the policy debates lay something more personal. One camp was visibly frustrated by what they perceived as increasing withdrawal from the other. Quieter in meetings, more focused on security briefings than public image management, it felt like preparation for impact rather than attempts to steer the ship. The other side pushed back, insisting this wasn't disengagement but realism. In rough seas, sometimes the smartest move is keeping the vessel steady until waves calm. Even senior staff found themselves choosing sides. Advisors leaning toward proactive media instincts worried that without narrative shaping, the brand risked permanent definition by back-to-back animated roasts. Those favoring restraint believed overexposure was the bigger threat, especially when both shows had proven they could transform small scraps of public material into weeks of satirical content. The tension wasn't explosive yet, but friction was creeping in through delayed email responses, heavily edited briefing documents, and staffers having quiet side conversations about contingency plans, in case one strategy completely failed. With rumored air dates now measured in days instead of weeks, there was no time left for extended debates. A decision on tone and approach had to be made immediately, because once the first blast hit, there would be no pulling anything back. The final hours, the atmosphere had changed completely. Not frantic like those first chaotic mornings, but heavy, like storm clouds that had stopped moving and were just hanging overhead waiting to break. Every clock seemed louder. Every calendar reminder felt sharper. The first detonation window was close enough to count in single digits.
Ooh, remind me to tell them the story about when I bought milk.
I think you just told it.
According to the internet's most dedicated investigators, all signs pointed to the first show firing the opening shot. The timing lined up too perfectly. Post-production whispers about multiple royal sequences, the leaked sentiment meter clip, and most telling of all, a network had quietly slotted an untitled new episode into a prime Sunday night gap. The placeholder description was deliberately vague, but online communities didn't need official confirmation. They'd already decided this was it. The working theory, repeated in tense internal calls, was brutal in its strategic logic. The first show would go broad and quick. Fast sequences, perfect for social media clipping. The second would follow with slower, more elaborate material that could dominate entire news cycles. That sequencing was devastating, because it meant living through the first wave of content while knowing a second, possibly harsher wave was already in production. Late one night, a media advisor circulated a briefing note outlining impact forecasts for both possible orders of events. If the second show aired first, there was a small chance the first might feel redundant. But if the first show let off, there was no scenario where the follow-up wouldn't feel like escalation. The note's final line was chilling. Second place is where the knockout punch lands. Entertainment media was already leaning into the countdown. Blogs ran side-by-side images of leaked yacht stills and sentiment meter storyboards under headlines like 2 shows, 2 weeks, 1 royal headache. Even late-night hosts started weaving jokes about double bookings in the cartoon roasting department into their monologues. For fan communities, this was like watching a championship match where the outcome didn't matter. Only the spectacle did. Fake betting boards appeared with odds on which show would deliver harsher burns. People openly planned watch parties and announced they'd be streaming live reaction videos as episodes aired.
Hey guys, so funny bumping into you.
Yeah, I mean, we all live here now, so not that funny.
The final hours before the window opened were spent on risk assessment. Every social account checked twice for vulnerabilities. Old photos, sound bites, anything that could be clipped into jokes and tied to new episodes. Social monitoring tightened even further. The most delicate decision involved whether to have their own people watching in real time or relying on secondhand reports. Watching meant being ready to respond instantly. Not watching meant risking complete surprises. The choice hadn't been made by sunset. But one thing was clear. The countdown wasn't just happening online anymore. It was happening in their heads. And if forecasts were right, once the first clock hit 0, the second hand would already be moving toward the follow-up swing. When the moment arrived, there was no grand announcement, just a quiet flicker on the television schedule. Sunday night, prime time. An untitled episode sliding into the lineup exactly where fan communities had predicted it would. The mood was taut, almost brittle. Nobody was saying, "This is it," but every glance, every half-finished sentence in the strategy room communicated the same understanding. By the episode's halfway point, the first clips were already on social media, grainy phone recordings from living rooms across the country. Unofficial, shaky, but unmistakable. The sentiment meter gag was bigger than leaks had suggested. A character tapped the gauge after hearing the words "streaming deal," sending the needle into red territory so violently that a glass jar labeled "World's Most Exclusive Jam" rattled off a counter and shattered. The studio audience roared.
Oh, you're hilarious, Megan. Why did you move back here anyway?
It was ultimately a tough call, but there were a lot of factors to consider.
Then came the throne of microphone sequence. Not a static background joke this time, but a full scene. An animated character ascended a pile of broken podcast equipment, wearing a plastic crown and delivering a pompous speech about owning your narrative, while another character muttered corrections from below. Actually, that was your producer's idea. The timing was perfect, the execution brutal. The timeline alternative device landed last, a montage of alternate realities. One showed the couple running a quaint English tea shop. Another placed them back in traditional royal roles, blissfully ignored by press. The final beat was sharpest, both of them in California, proudly announcing their retirement from public life into a bank of cameras. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Within minutes, hashtags were trending worldwide.
We couldn't get jobs and we ran out of money. We ate chicken out of bowls and rode in big cars full of smelly people to something called work. Every day was a new nightmare.
Social media flooded with reaction videos of people pointing at their televisions, laughing, tagging friends. Instagram Reels looped the jam jar, shattering alongside real product shots from lifestyle brands. Even the most serious discussion boards lit up with immediate verdicts. Round 1 goes to animation. Black status held firm. No public statement. No social posts. No strategic leaks to friendly journalists. But sources later claimed the episode had been monitored in real time by Inner Circle members, with detailed notes taken on every frame that could be clipped, memed, or weaponized in future cycles. The internal conclusion, according to one insider, they pulled punches, but not many. The real tension wasn't about what had just aired anymore. It was about what was coming next. Every reaction, every meme, every think piece sparked by the first roast was now priming audiences for the follow-up. With yacht and rosé sequences already burned into internet memory, the fear wasn't that the second show would go further. It was that it wouldn't have to. The sequence alone felt orchestrated, even if it wasn't. Sharp, quick-hitting comedy followed by what everyone expected would be longer, more layered satire.
There were highs and lows. It's all good. Anyway, see you guys at tea. Come on, Harry.
For anyone caught in the crossfire, that perception was almost as dangerous as the actual jokes. By the time credits rolled, countdown clocks for the second show were already being updated in real time across the internet. Nobody could predict exactly what the follow-up would look like, but everyone understood the stakes had just been raised exponentially. If the first episode set the tone, the second could lock it in permanently. And once something gets locked in the public imagination, no amount of professional polish can buff it away. The war wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And the next battle would determine whether this became a footnote in celebrity culture or a permanent shift in how the world sees modern royalty. The internet had spoken its first word. Now everyone was waiting to hear its final verdict. What happens when cartoon characters have the last laugh? We're about to find out, and the answer might change everything we thought we knew about power, privilege, and who really controls the narrative in the digital age. The countdown continues, and the next detonation is already loaded and ready to fire.